All right. Good evening, everybody. We're going to be calling to order the Town of Lake Clark Shore Special Council meeting to appoint a new town manager on November 2nd, 2022. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Paul Shalhoub,
Present.
Vice Mayor Robert Shalhoub,
Here.
President Pro Tem Gregory Freebold,
Here.
Councilmember Valteen Rodriguez,
Here.
Councilmember Robert Gonzalez.
Here.
We all stand for pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Take a motion.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Okay. We have an introduction, Dan, of the two town manager candidates.
Mr. Mayor, back in August, I announced my intent to retire, and we put out a request for proposals, if you will, for some new town manager. We got 16 applicants. We shortlisted to 4. Through the interview process that has occurred to date, 2 of those applicants have withdrawn from further consideration. So I present to you tonight Jason Davis and Joe Labello. You've each had an opportunity to talk to them independently. Tonight, you have in front of you some questions that you can pick and choose from to ask of the 2 applicants. The format, as I expect it to go tonight, with your permission, Mayor, is to take the 2 applicants into the conference room, to bring them out one at a time in alphabetical order. The council can go through and question them. Then we'll return that applicant, bring out the next applicant, go through the same set of questions, and then we'll bring them both out and you can do your deliberations. At the end of the night, you each have a pink sheet of paper in front of you, a Post-it note. At the end of the night, when you're done with your deliberations, we'll ask that you write your top choice onto that pink note. I'll come and collect them, and the attorney will read off the names and tell us who is your choice.
That works for me.
And are there names on the pink note?
No, there are not.
We'll write the names.
You'll have to write your name on it.
Yeah, the pink note is
A Post-it note. Any notes that you make tonight in the discussions and question and answer need to be part of the public record. So we have provided you with a list of the questions, but also the name of the applicant that you'll be questioning and your name. We will need you before the end of the night to sign the top sheet, initial each page of each sheet, and return those to us. So any notes that you're making about anything that anybody says, the note should be included on these pages.
Thank you very much. Everybody on board with that plan?
Yep.
Okay. Before we go any further, thank you, Dan. Gentlemen, so we have these questions. If you could pick 3 or 4 that you would like to ask, and then each councilman will ask 2 questions. The reason I'm saying pick up the 4 is because if one of the other councilmen is asking your questions, then you would need to pick a different set of 2 questions. I want each of us, or each of y'all, to ask 2 questions, and we can go from there. Okay? All right. So kind of start thinking about what you would like to do there, please. Gentlemen, Mr. Davis and Mr. Labello, welcome. Thank you very much for participating in tonight's interview process, and thank you very much for your application and desire to serve as our new town manager. It was a pleasure to get to know both of you during the interview process that we held a couple of weeks ago. So on behalf of the town and the entire staff, we want to express our appreciation for your interest in the position here. Your interview will take approximately 30 minutes, and we'll focus on your background and ways you feel you can assist our community as the next town manager. We have several questions related to specific local issues of concern for the town council, and we ask that your answers be direct and as specific as possible. being respectful of your time frame for the interview, which as I said is about 30 minutes. All right, so gentlemen, are y'all ready?
Ready.
All right, we're going to start with Mr. Jason Davis.
Mr. Mayor,
Hello.
Mr. Mayor, while I show Joe to the conference room, could you check your mic? It seems to be rather weak. Is it?
My apologies.
There we go. Thank
I
you.
had it off there. Ooh. I have a feeling everybody still heard me.
They heard you in Wellington, Mr.
I
Mayor.
probably was reverberating off other microphones.
For the record, this is a public meeting and we cannot exclude anyone from the meeting. So it's my understanding that the two applicants are voluntarily removing themselves from the meeting during the interview of the other candidate.
Okay. Is that right? Okay. All right. Well, Mr. Davis, you're first up. Yes, sir. Yeah, come on up here. If you'd like to give an introduction, you can, but we all met you and enjoyed our time with you, so we can move on to questions if you like.
Quick introduction for the room. My name's Jason. Nice to meet you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, why don't you go ahead and state where your current position is?
I am currently the Division Director for Utility Maintenance Director for Palm Beach County Water Utilities. I've been there for 3.5 years. Prior to that, I did 12 years with Palm Beach County Facilities Development Operations. So 15.5 years local government.
Thank you very much. Start with Councilman Rodriguez.
Oh, I get to go first? Okay, so I want to ask you the question about the relationship between a town manager and town council. I'm sorry. I want to ask you just a question about how you would view your relationship between you being the town manager and the town council. So, and then also, could you tell us what your relationship would be like with department heads and town staff? And if you could maybe use some examples. I know you and I had talked on the phone before a little bit about it, but some of the examples and what you deal with now in the water utilities department.
Okay. For me in public sector, I'm a servant for the town in this instance. Right now with Palm Beach County, even though I'm only in water utilities, I am a servant for all of Palm Beach County. So anytime I'm in the field, I interact with the public in terms of interacting with that board. Open line of communication. And I would carry the same practice here. Open line of communication. I feel like I'm very easy to work with. I understand you're all residents, so I serve the residents in that regard.
How many persons do you have working under you?
I'm sorry, can you say it
How many
again?
persons, employees do you have working under you now?
Indirectly 500, directly I have eight direct reports, the managers that oversee the various sections.
And what is your type of relationship you have with those managers?
Very open. They call, email, text 24/7. If I had the ability, I would take the door off of my office. I have a no door policy. They can come in any time of the day. If they need to talk about personal matters, we keep it off the books. If they need help with anything they need to do in terms of their career, I do sit down with every single employee and we map out a 5-year plan, and I want to make sure that I'm meeting their needs. So I do a lot of 360 evaluations. I have a lot of new staff every year. So I want to get their feedback, make sure I'm meeting their expectations.
What is the 5-year plan?
For myself or for the employee?
Yeah, is it a 5-year plan for the business, for the utilities department, or something you
No.
have?
I want to map out a 5-year plan for the employees. So if I have entry-level staff, I don't want them to sit stagnant. I want to map out a career path for them.
Okay.
I want them to be hungry. If that means we put them in college, if that means we set up a career, even if they want to go work for fire rescue or the clerk, I have a lot of resources that I can reach out and map out a plan for them to be successful. So that's the trade-off.
Okay. And then I guess the second question I'll ask, and then I'll leave the rest to council, is number 6. How do you keep the town council informed of issues, operations, and activities? So yeah, how would you propose to do it?
So for now, I have direct access to county commissioners, for Virginia, our county administrator, My department reports to Ton Bodlaren, so I mean, I see him regularly. I actually just worked the hurricane with him at the EOC. So I have direct access and we talk daily. Anything that I feel is going to make the news, of course, I call him immediately. Anything that I feel is not a pressing, urgent issue, I try not to bother, but they call me and I'll give them updates. And again, it's been a very successful practice. So unless there's a different direction here, I would just stay true to that.
Okay, thank you. That would be my questions.
Any follow-up from the council on that topic, those two topics? Just follow up on those two questions.
Just one short one. So throughout some of the interviews that we've had with various applicants, one of the commonalities that have come through about our staff here at Lake Clark Shores is a family atmosphere. How would you foster that same type of atmosphere?
Well, that was my main takeaway from the first round of interviews. I was pleasantly taken aback by how everybody interacted together and just the overall family environment. Everybody was overly kind and helpful. And so I thoroughly appreciated that. I would love to keep that going. And I mean, again, I find myself to be a very friendly, approachable person. And it's just the environment that we create. I do the exact same thing now. I take all the staff, we have family day. They're not allowed to talk about work. We go and have lunch. And if it takes a little bit longer than an hour, we make sure we have some time to just decompress and enjoy that family time. But here, there's popcorn Friday, and I was telling my wife, and just a lot of really nice things. The barbecue, the big events. I'm all about all of that. I enjoy that thoroughly.
Thank you.
Very good.
Councilman Gonzalez, you're up.
All right. Well, I noticed on your cover sheet here that you have some emergency management experience. So I'd like for you to describe your emergency management experience and training. Such experience and training is helpful, especially in cases of hurricane and tropical storms.
Yeah, very good. For the last 15 years, I've been the point of contact for facilities for my first 12. And then I've also the point of contact for water utilities in the last 3. So anytime there's an activation, I live at the EOC. I have taken probably close to 100 credits in the NIMS courses. Everything from volcanoes and earthquakes that I don't need to right down to everything that I need to work in Florida. Studying in school, I did the exact same thing, a lot of emergency management, first responder. The first 12 years of my career before I started in public sector, I worked security for facilities of mass public assembly. And that was my role in that environment as well. So every activation, for example, the Breakers Hotel, I lived at the Breakers Hotel. A team, B team, make sure that the site's safe. We go out and evaluate the properties after, make sure it's safe for the public to return, employees to return. So I'd like to think I have a lot of experience in that regard, as I've done it extensively for public and private sector.
Thank you. I remember you mentioned that your brother is
Correct.
a police officer.
Correct. He's a deputy at the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office.
So we appreciate his service. And so I wanted to ask you briefly, what is your vision for our police department here at Lake Clark Shores, knowing that we're a small community? How would you be able to interface with them and also support the police department?
I am a proponent of law enforcement, always have been. My undergraduate at Florida State was criminology, and then I went to the Criminal Justice Institute at Nova and finished a MBA program in that Criminal Justice Institute. My brother's a deputy, and interacting with the panel on the first day of interviews, my understanding was trying to hire law enforcement, to retain law enforcement, competing with other entities. So I would like to really dive into that and make sure there's a good succession plan, a good means to pipeline in from some of the colleges. I've still have a good working relationship with some of the colleges. I keep veering away from the microphone. So I'd like to think that we can keep working in that direction positively.
Okay, thank you.
Very good.
My other question is going to be, I'm sure you've heard, an area of significant local concern is the Lake Clark water lake quality.
Yep.
What has been your experience working with FDEP on TMDLs, BMAPs, or RAPs? What has been your experience working with the Palm Beach County delegation on legislative funding and local bills? And if you can use some examples, that would be great. Have you been successful in obtaining grants or intergovernmental cooperation for sewer projects? Please describe. I'm happy to reiterate any one of those questions, but just wanted to give you a broad swath so that you can.
I will dive into it and then
Sure.
make sure I hit all the points, I think. All right, so yeah, I understand the lake is impaired. The sewer to septic program is looking to tackle some of that. Working with water utilities, it's a major project that I have going on in the acreage area. Same thing, septic to sewer, and out in the Glades area. In terms of grants, I was kind of surprised when I looked at your website and I saw the number of grants you'd applied for, and I believe you're only awarded one. The utility that I work for, 400 million in the bank in capital, and I've applied for several grants and was awarded almost all of them. So something I would like to look at a little bit deeper to understand why. We were just awarded a $15 million grant to build a new wastewater plant out west, an operations center. I was a certified grant writer, but I let certification go several years ago, but I still applied for 2 grants myself and was awarded both. So it's just something I think needs some attention. But in terms of the total max daily loads, I work a lot with FDEP for sanitary sewer. So with Tallahassee in terms of reporting, I understand how all that works. Is that where you're going with that question?
Yeah, no, you're hitting it right, nail on the head.
So when I have those, I have to have remedial plans. So if I have a pipe break or a lift station or something along those lines, I have to provide how we're going to address it. There's now change in legislature that there's a fine with everyone over 1,000 gallons or anything that enters a body of water with my current position. So I have to provide a substantial backup documentation as to what happened, to how we're going to address it. And what we're doing in terms of, since there's a mandatory fee, a fine, what I've worked out is I can do projects that offset environmental. So I can install LED lights instead of pay the fine. So it allows me to be creative with that.
Okay.
A project that I was going to do anyway and offset that fine and not have to pay the fine.
So creativity is a good thing. So you mentioned that you've had some septic to sewer projects.
Oh, several.
In process?
Yes.
How many of those have completed, and what's the impact that has had?
These are all in design. The vehicle to pay for this, whether we use grants, whether it's assessments on the properties, similar to what you have going on here. When I look at I forgot the terminology that was used. Cost of issue, the SRF loan, the bank loan, the municipal, those bonds, similar concept what we're doing here, but we're really trying to chase some grants and offset some of the fees for the users because the acreage areas, it's massive. And the infrastructure doesn't allow for a very cheap and easy change out. So there's going to be a lot of laterals that need to be installed. It's going to be a very costly project there. Same thing in the Glades, and it's poverty levels in some of the areas that we need to do this work. So we're going to probably be pretty successful chasing grants there. But 2 massive projects in their unique in their own way that are right now in design and also on the back burner trying to face money for it.
Just very last one. How important is it to have a project that's in design to be able to get grants? Or stated differently, how important is it to have a complete design in order to be able to be eligible for grants?
Depends on what grant that we chase. Some of them you have to have the project done by a certain date. So some of the federal grants, Davis-Bacon, for example, if it's, I don't know if any of those qualify under that, but I have to have the project done and closed out by a certain date. So if we can't meet that deadline, we don't even apply for those. I'm not sure I understand where you're going with the question. It's really driven based on the grant structure.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Any follow-up on those questions? President Pro Tem Prebo?
Jason, good evening. Nice to see you again.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your time a couple of weeks ago. It was a pleasure meeting you. Have you had an opportunity to review and compare yourself with the position description and to review the background materials on the town and to visit our community and drive around and tell me what are some of your candid reactions and observations? Are there any town operations which you have not had previous experience or any concerns about our operations here in our town?
It's like a 9-part question.
I'll
So
give
yes,
you the list if you'd like. That's an important thing.
I have driven around. It's a very aesthetic community. I was taking, just picturesque. Some of these homes are incredible. In looking at the CRA area along Forest Hill and, the parking and the traffic and safe pedestrians, that sort of thing. I mean, that's pretty clear cut. It's ironed out in that 139-page document.
Yes.
Pretty well. Let's see. Sorry, could you repeat it again? I feel like I'm missing.
Are there any town operations which you have not had previous experience?
So direct experience, probably a few, but in my time with facilities, I interacted with every single county agency that the county offers in some capacity. I would not consider myself an expert in any one of them outside of I'm very good at business process mapping and efficiency and effectiveness in government, but I could never do Ms. Pinkerman's job as the election person, as the clerk. I know enough to get myself in trouble, but I also have some pretty strong resources I can reach out to and that sort of thing.
We
already have a
could
lot of
survive without
resources.
Mary for sure.
I could probably hold my own in your utilities section. Thinking through some of the other sections I saw on the website. It seems like Mr. Clark wears 9 of the 10 hats. But again, I think we have more than enough talent here to navigate pretty much anything. And then I also bring my own network with me.
Just, I'm going to add a little bit to that. Are you familiar with home rule?
Yes, you brought it up in that.
Okay. And you have any experience with the Palm Beach County League of Cities or the Florida League of Cities, or?
I am a member.
You are? Okay.
I am.
Good.
So
that's good to hear.
I navigated the website today just to freshen up on it.
Sure. Okay. So he already hit the water quality, which is a big thing also.
Absolutely.
Now, another issue, local issue, it is expected that Forest Hill Boulevard is going to redevelop in the next 5 years. That's our CRA.
Yep.
We've already been working that to try and rejuvenate that area. Describe your experience working with the Florida Department of Transportation, the TPA, and adjoining communities on roadway planning projects, and what experience you have in planning and executing economic development projects in conjunction with the major roadways.
All right. So
A lot of stuff in there.
yeah, there's a lot going on there. I did have to sit through some MOT training because we shut roads down occasionally to repair pipes. I do a lot of work directly with, I'm forgetting the gentleman's name, but depending on what city I'm in, it's a different milling in 50 feet in each direction. In Belglade, for example, that's their requirement. State roads, county roads, that sort of thing, different rules. As far as coordination, the coordination that I do is predominantly, I'm not going to go tear up your new road. If you have a road project, I'd like to do my water project at the same time, so we're not inconveniencing people for 10 years as opposed to whatever the length of the road project and or the water project is. So anytime I have a pipe project, I also coordinate with whatever entity we're in to make sure if they want to do a road project at the same time. That's probably my extent there. I don't do a lot directly with, I have a civil guy that does the drawings and all that sort of thing, a little bit outside my skill set in terms of the engineering work.
Right. Okay, I'm good.
Any follow-ups on those? Are we good? All right, Mr. Vice Mayor?
I want everybody to know that you have a doctorate.
Okay.
You mentioned your MBA, but it seems as though, people are so shy saying, by the way, I have a PhD. And I was very impressed with that when I met you. And I enjoyed my time with you immensely and got to know each other and your activity with sports and some common denominators, common relationships. My questions are a little bit more succinct.
Okay.
Ready?
Absolutely.
How does your experience qualify you for this position?
I'd like to think I just bring a very diverse background between the three kind of mini careers that I've had. A lot of construction, demolition, remodeling. Like I said, I've worked with every single county entity in some capacity. have a pretty strong grasp of the water quality, the projects, those sorts of things. Then there's just general management, budget, strategic planning, succession planning, master planning for an organization overall. Kind of a unique factor about my career is when I started in security, I had zero background. I was right out of college, guy gave me a job, and I learned everything. And I earned the highest credential you can get in the private security field. I mean, I'd like to think I've pretty much seen it all, done it all, and every time I think that, something else new pops up. But then I move into government work and come with a security background, and the woman that hired me, she was an attorney and a engineer, brilliant mind. She appointed me to oversee the biggest construction project in the history of the county for that department. It was 250, it was a jail expansion project. And I told her, I was like, I don't have this kind of background. And she had a real unique way of telling me to get out of her office. She's like, I know you don't, but you'll figure it out. See me if you need me. So I just had to figure it out and get to it and rely on what little knowledge I had, make sure I could reach out to my network, and they're always available for me in that regard, and vice versa. So, you know, I did 12 years there, and we did some major projects. We overhauled the jail, we overhauled the courthouses, libraries, property appraiser, that sort of thing. And then I moved into water utilities. And when I started there, the only thing I knew about water was water's delicious and wastewater is not. And it was a massive, I mean, I was overwhelmed at first. I had to just take a step back, and I told the department director, I said, I don't have a utility background. I don't have a water background. You know, he understood that. So I had to dive in. I've learned more about water in 3 years than I did in 6 years of college with security and that sort of thing. It's all the effort that you put into it. So I think I'm going to bring a different level of hunger to a position. You know, I don't have the experience that some people on the panel may have, but I am a driven individual. My motto in my head is I have to win at everything. Dive in, do it, figure it out, ask for help when you need it. No excuses.
Let me segue into what experience you have with respect to budget preparation and finance.
Okay, so every year I start my budget process. I have an operating budget of, I want to say 6 million off the top of my head. I have an R&R budget and a capital budget. I get a lot of input from the field. And those guys, I mean, I have 1,200 lift stations. I have 5 water plants, 3 wastewater. They're all over the county. So I don't know all that stuff. I get a lot of input from the field, and I use our utility master plan. I mean, I have a spreadsheet 9 miles long, 9 miles wide that has every asset that I own that tells me when I need to invest money in it. You're wasting your time, replace it. And then it allows me to do, I can forecast budgets for 10, 15 years in that regard. It also allows me to be creative with my budget. I know, for example, fire alarms. I have 30 fire alarms that were installed in the 70s. I can get parts for them. I can service it. So there's no reason for me to go spend the $12 million that they're recommending on a massive site. I can push that out a little bit because it's not urgent. The ones that are urgent can come to the front of the table because I do a lot of what I call data-driven decision making. I have all kinds of very expensive tools that allow me to punch in the data, and it churns out and gives me a recommendation, and then we review it as a team, and that's our budget, and then I send it down to Virginia. I do not, here's the easiest example I can give you. If I go to a water plant, the first thing they say is, I need 2 guys. I need more people. So my pushback is always, are you keeping up with your data entry system that says you're behind on work orders? You're using a lot of overtime. If you can show me the data, I will support it and I will move it downtown. So anything, whether it's human capital or tangible items, I can map that out pretty far with what I have in place now.
Doctor, what would be your first steps upon assuming responsibility for this position? And what do you expect to accomplish your first year?
First year. So every position I've ever had, I sit down with every single person. I want to know names. I want to make sure they have access to me. I want them to understand that come see me for anything. I can help you if I know what you need. So I do sit down with every single person, and that's on their time. So if you have a midnight shift, I come in on the midnight shift. We meet. I'm not going to make you stay over on the day shift. In that first year, I honestly, I'd like to champion a lot of the things that Mr. Clark has started. He's got the blue trail. You know, I think what I saw in that, it was kind of tabled since 2017, but it looks like it's a good revenue generator. It'll increase property values, those sorts of things. The CRA, by all means, increase the property value so that keep working on that millage and beautify the environment. The septic to sewer. I saw, you know, the pickleball and the fun things that are coming up as well. Redevelopment of Forest Hill Boulevard. I guess the Pine Tree Bridge is in progress. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. I need to dive in and understand it immediately, but then also take input from the team to see what the vision is that I'm not aware of potentially.
Thank you, Doctor.
Oh, all right. That's it. Okay.
I told you I was succinct.
Very good. Thank
Well,
you.
You and I spent a lot of time together. I'm extremely impressed.
Okay, good. Thank
Any
you.
follow-up questions on those topics? Thank you very much.
Outstanding.
Truly appreciate it. All right, you're free to
Free to
go.
go.
Thank you. Thank you.
The grilling process is over.
Thank you.
I was going to follow the same order. But we're going to do the same order that we did for Mr. Davis.
You can see my questions aren't on. I'm over here. It scared me.
I noticed.
You noticed. So knock yourself out if you want to use any of those other questions, John.
Plenty of questions to go
I think you
around.
should use the same ones as our cleanup questionnaire.
I'm going to use the same ones that I just asked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. LaBello.
Good evening, Mayor.
Would you be so kind as to introduce yourself briefly and where you currently are employed?
Sure. My name is Joseph Labella. I go by Joe or Joseph. With the town of Juno Beach. I've been there for 34 and a half years. I'm timed out. I'm in my drop, so I have to leave by June. I had a great run there. I love my job there, but obviously rules are rules and you have to leave. So it would be an honor for me to work for this town. I think it's a good match for me.
All right, well, thank you. We're going to start you off with the questions with Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you.
So the question is, are you a good match for us?
Okay.
When you say good match for me, I'm thinking, oh, okay. And I've had the opportunity to talk to you a lot, which is nice, and I appreciate you coming to some of the council meetings and getting an idea of what type of town we are, because we're a lot different than Juneau. But we have some interest in common. So the first question is, what is your way of engaging the council staff and community groups toward common goals and objectives in the community? Like what would you use to kind of bring us all together?
Well, I've used many different kinds of methods, charrettes, where you bring in experts on subject matters, workshops. There's all kinds of things, but I also have an open door policy. So the residents should always come to me, look at me as a resource and say, this is my situation. How do you resolve it? Even if it's as small as a problem with their roof. They should look at me as someone to help them, not as an adversary. So I make sure that happens. I know the job is 24/7 and I'm available to them and to you all 24/7. So I've had much success in my diplomatic skills in Juno Beach.
Have you had controversies in Juno Beach that have divided the community?
Of course.
And have you had somebody who's been really sort of like pushing the limits on both sides?
Of course. The great thing about a good manager is you keep out of the politics. You're supposed to be apolitical, and I believe in that. I will never condone a candidate or one of you all in a race. I stay totally out of it so they know where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a person who has experience, who has knowledge, or know where to get the answers. So after a few months, they will trust you all, and the community will trust in me to be that person.
And would you, so at some point, a citizen comes up and has a complaint to you that's pretty serious, and they repeatedly keep coming to you, and they just don't like the answer you get. Okay, has that ever happened, Juno?
Of course, yeah.
How would you deal with that in a small community like Lake Park?
Well, I don't think we're that big or much different size. We got about 3,500. You have 3,500, 3,800 residents. It's not that much different size. I look at them, and they look at me as their advocate. I look at, let's think out of the box. Let's see how we can solve this, because I should come up with other things. Unfortunately, sometimes I have to tell them it's Florida statute, or it's this, our ordinance is against it, my hands are tied, but let's come up with other options to solve the problem. So I'm always there as their advocate.
And just the last question I wanted to ask is, how would you keep us, your town council, informed of issues, operations, and activities? What's your method of communication? What's your?
Thank you. I believe, I'm an old timer, so I believe in the old methods where the best way is phone call. You communicate best if it's one-on-one or in a phone call. But every day I have a list, and I say staff issues, council issues, resident issues, and I write little notes in there. So this way I don't forget what I have to tell you when I actually do see you or get with you. But I use all forms of communications. If there was an accident, there was an accident in your community this week. I think it was this morning. I drive through your community to go to work. So I would take a picture of that and send you a text and say, there's a little fender bender. Obviously, you can't reply to that, government in the sunshine, but this way you all know what's going on in your town. So that will be that instant response to see what's going on in your town. But then if it's something of more substance, an email. But most of the time it'll be one-on-one and on a phone call where I'll go give you a weekly or daily review of what's going on in the town.
All I have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions on those two topics? Nope. All right. Yes, Councilman Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Lobello. I
you.
appreciate you coming out and your interest and involvement with the community. And I just want to reiterate what Val said. You've taken an enormous interest in kind of getting to know us during this courting period, so to say. What is your overall vision as you see it and as you envision Lake Clark Shores today, tomorrow, and in the future?
It's a really good question. Obviously, you have projects, septic to sewer, that might come up, and I've done that project many times. We're actually completed that job in Juno Beach. We are fully septic. We have no more septic tanks. We're fully on a sanitary sewer system. And I'm also on the board of Seacoast Utility. You probably know that already. I'm actually the chair this year. Seacoast Utility has 47,000 customers and it's 65 square miles. It's a very big utility. So I'm very familiar with how to operate utilities. But how, let's see. Well, so, I get a little nervous.
It's okay. What's your overall vision of Lake Clark Shores
Okay,
today, tomorrow, and in the future? And I know we had a lot of
conversations
conversations in terms of
economic development.
yes.
Yes. Well, when you look at your community, part of your community is is that drive through, and we want to make that as beautiful as possible. So I've been very fortunate to work for a town that's given me a lot of leadway. I think Juno Beach is beautiful, and we believe there in quality over quantity. So that means lower density, less intensity, less traffic. So all of that is what Juno Beach stands for. I don't know what you all stand for. I will interview you all. But my job is to make this town as beautiful as possible. You have great residents, so I'm gonna really invest interest in seeing what the residents want, see what you all want, and making those goals and visions come true.
So that was the Dream Big Vision Board question.
Yes.
The next question is a little bit more difficult, but I think that it highlights your experience with the business administration background. You also have taken and passed the CPA, the Certified Public Accountant exam. So you have a lot of financial experience. So Big Dream Board is all the nice to have, like to haves, future vision planning. How do we get there, or how do we do more with a little? My dad always had a saying, make your plan and work your plan. So how would you be able to benefit Lake Clark Shores with a smaller budget with your experience?
Okay, that's a great question also. Well, I have to use my examples. When I got to Juno Beach, our millage rate was over 4%, 4 mils, over 4 mils. Our millage rate is 1.8 right now. It's over less than half. We went from debt, we have no debt. We went from having very little reserves, and I put a policy in for 50% reserves. We have over 100% reserves. Finances is my expertise. I'm on a finance committee, as you know, with the League of Cities. It's on my resume. I've been on it for over 22 years. We actually manage over $1 billion with the Florida League of Cities. And we manage their pension, we manage their investment portfolio. You're having them in for looking at loan options next month. So I know all of those players there, obviously. So, but economic development, getting your millage rate, I'd have to look what your goals are, but then I'm going to achieve those because I'm all into fiduciary responsibility, prioritization when necessary, making the town as efficient as possible, and running it like a business.
Two very short questions. How would you be able to facilitate grants with septic to sewer, and just getting out there and getting us the most amount of resources possible, so there's less of a burden for the residents?
I really believe in hiring a grant consultant. Grant consultants, that's what they do for a living. And they're not that expensive. People say, oh, they're that expensive. Usually you pay like $3,000 per grant, but not only are they helping you fill out, they're out there searching for what's out in the market. Then they help you fill out the application because they know them. They know who the graders of those grants, so they help you get the grant. Also, they lobby for that grant when it goes to Tallahassee, they know the players up there so they lobby for you. And then later they actually help you administer the grant because there's a lot of nuances. There's strings in these grants. Buy American has to be done in a certain way. As you know, you talked about FERDAP grants here, right here, that you cannot have, you can't limit it to the residents only. That's for FERDAP grants. Every grant has, so I'm going to make sure that you are knowledgeable about those restrictions, but hiring a grant consultant, in my opinion, is vital. We had a grant, we have a project, it's a drainage project. It's about $2 to $3 million project. It's on Universe Boulevard in front of FP&L. It's just a drainage project. It's not really that big of a deal in today's world. I got $1 million grant for that. Just signed the agreement just a few weeks ago. So the residents are really happy that their special assessment is going down by more than a third.
Well, thank you. That's very informative. The last question I have, and I noticed that your sunset at Juno is around June. So what are the steps, or what can you do to bridge the gap between the sunset of Mr. Clark's tenure with us and your sunrise with us?
Well, I keep my council totally informed. They know I'm here. They know the first day before I put the application in, I sent them an email and said, this is what I'm doing. So, and one of them calls me and said, why do you even do that? Because I said, this is a public occupation. You're going to find out about it. So they know about what I'm doing. So tomorrow, if I'm honored and blessed to get this job, I'm going to send them an email and say, I got the job. You need to, we hired a headhunter. If you know, it's an executive search firm to replace my position. Let's start on that, because it takes it's a 3-month process. and they just hired the consultant. So I have faith. I'll do whatever it takes. Let me give an example. When I took the job in Juno Beach from Florida City, they hired me on the spot as the finance director. I was 22 years old, just passed the CPA on the first try. They said, you got the job, you got it. So, but our department has been decimated. So you have to start immediately, or as soon as I said, I didn't give notice to my other employer. I have to go back. But I said, let me go back. They're nice people. Let me see what I can do. So I went back there, drove that long drive, and I'm saying, I'm going to work for you 3 days. I'm going to work for Juno Beach 3 days. Is that acceptable? Starting immediately. They need me. You need me, and I'll do that for a month. The plan didn't work. You know why the plan didn't work? Because I did it for 3 months. And both cities honored me with paying my whole salary for 3 months. It was a great down payment on my first house. So that's what kind of person I am. As soon as you tell me you're the person that you want me to be part of your team, I'm in 100%.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions on that, gentlemen? Nope. All right, President Pro Tem Friedel.
Joe, good evening. Nice to see you again.
Great to see you.
Thank you for spending your time with us a couple weeks ago and this evening, coming in, talking to everybody. So you have a lot of finance experience. That's a good thing. We're going to have a lot of stuff coming our way. So let me ask you a question about that. It says here in your thing, you managed and oversaw the construction and financing of the new town center. Now, this is the center that's on the northwest corner of Donald Ross and US 1? No?
It's on our 12-acre lake and on Pelican Lake. It's our
Pelican Lake, okay,
it's our town hall. We call it our town center.
Okay.
So-
So that's actually off of A1A.
It's on A-Way.
Okay, got it.
15,000 square feet.
And is that something comparable to a CRA or no?
No.
No, okay. But you have experience with
I
that?
have no experience with CRA, believe it
Okay.
or not. That's the only thing. I know where to get
Okay.
the answers, but I've never ran a CRA in all my
Okay.
careers.
Congratulations on being selected as a home rule hero
Thank you.
2021.
Thank you.
It's a nice accomplishment. You achieved the town's goal to convert the entire town from septic to sewer in 2021.
That's correct.
Tell us a little bit about that process.
Well, we took it street by street or neighborhood by neighborhood. So it took us 15 to 20 years. We had a lot of neighborhood meetings and told them what the assessment was going to be and explain the process, because you get the pipes in, but then you actually have to connect to it. So we've been successful. It was a goal that we had and we've achieved it.
How many of those homes were on the water? Is Juno Isles part of you guys there
No,
too? Or
Juno
not
Isles is
your
not
Palm
part.
Beach
It's a-
Gardens there?
No, it's an enclave. Juno
It's an
Island.
enclave?
Yes.
Okay. So tell us about how long that project lasted or took, or
It took 20 years.
its process.
It's a process. Yes. You can go quicker, but we decided to go.
Was
That
there a
was-
lot of resistance or?
There's always resistance when.
Well, I know your community, so,
Right.
and it's okay. It's just part of what's going on here.
Yeah.
Was that mandated?
No.
No.
We decided.
So
that
they
was our goal.
voluntarily did it to stay ahead of the curve,
Yes.
which in your opinion, as a man with all this experience, was a good thing?
Yes. Yeah.
You beat them to the punch.
Yes. Anytime you're near waterways, you
All right.
should.
So the next thing, you said 24/7, if you should get this position, we're going to hold you to that.
I don't know how else to live. 2 o'clock in
It's
the morning.
okay.
on
We
Friday-
won't call after 3 a.m.
No, you can call me
or
anytime.
before 6 a.m.
You can call me.
After that, we need you.
You know,
Have you had a chance to drive around Lake Clark Shores and check out our area and where we're at and
I have.
how we're doing?
Yes.
So I know Juno Beach very well. How would you assess our neighborhood in just your general observations that you've seen?
It's fairly concentrated on residential. I'd like to see, like I said, that corridor on Forest Hill to be more friendly, more beautiful, in my opinion. I see a mixed use project, but again, that's just my vision.
That's okay. We've been looking at all of that kind of
Yeah,
stuff because it's important to the town overall for the future in the next
Right.
25 or 30 years, not just the next 5 years.
Right.
It's going to be the long-term vision of what happens to this community and with everything that's going on in the state of Florida and without Palm Beach County, throughout Palm Beach County and all that kind of stuff. So, but you can learn about CRAs, correct?
Yes, of
Yeah,
course.
I think you can.
Yes, I know,
I just have one more
I
quick
know the
thing
basics.
that I was looking through here. Oh, yeah, okay, you talked about the mixed use project, I see. Tell us about that, because it says you plan and manage use workshops to reach out to the residents, allowing for the successful approval of the Coretta project on the northwest corner of US 1 and Donald Ross. So
Yes.
that's the area I was thinking about.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
It's a 5-acre parcels, 4 different parcels. We're going to
It's got
put,
all the shops and the,
it's vacant right now. Of course.
it's all vacant?
Yeah, the north west corner is vacant. The other corner, the northeast is
It's
got
all
shops,
occupied and
yeah.
everything?
Right now it's vacant, and we had several developers. Actually, the first developer actually sold it to another. It sold twice because the town was not actually happy with the plans. We have good codes where a lot of things have to go through special exception process, which means you have a lot of leadway of what you see there. What once was a gas station, a Wawa, a conjugate living facility. All of these things the town did not prefer. They preferred a residential use, condo, not rental, with a mixed use with smaller amount of percentage, because we have we have a 75-25 where it has to be 75% residential and 25% commercial. And I said that's really antiquated, and they did change the code on my recommendation. And because right now with e-commerce and everything that's going on with office, with COVID, things are changing. We have more retail in South Florida than anywhere in the country. So there's too much retail. So what we did was we put 95%, we changed the code and we could put up to 95%. We put 96% residential and, or 94 and then 6, somewhere those numbers. And it's 96 high luxury condos and about 20,000 square feet of restaurants, retail. It's a beautiful project. It's going to be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And it just took many years, but we got what we wanted. Council and passed unanimously through the P&Z board, and it passed unanimously through the council. Very happy with that work that I put into that. So I am, like you said, I don't want to call myself an expert in finance, but I'm multifaceted. I know planning and zoning like the back of my hand. I work with developers. I actually want to be called when a developer comes into this town. I want to be called. I want to be introduced. I want to give them my number, and I want to be involved from day one, because I want to see that the project be successful in your vision. And if I think there's a different vision, I'm going to tell you. I'm always going to tell you the truth. You might
Sure.
not listen to me, but you pay me to tell you what my beliefs
Absolutely.
are.
Don't
And
tell us what we want to hear. Tell us what
I'm
we
always
need
going to
know.
tell you what I believe. Yes,
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
sir.
it.
Thank you very much. Any follow-up questions to those?
I do. We're talking about development, and I noticed that you brought some sort of architectural drawing. So I was just
This
curious.
is your town.
Ah, wow.
This is your beautiful town.
That's quite, that's good. And also, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if it's appropriate now, just I think it's a point of order. Would it be possible to hear some audience comments before we comment? Is that, are we able to do that?
We're not even done.
Right,
asking our
but
questions.
later on,
We'll get to audience comments
I'll table
in
that.
accordance with the agenda.
thank you, Mr.
You're
Mayor.
welcome. Mr. Vice Mayor.
What experience qualifies you for this position?
Well, you all know, because you're in this job, that city managers don't last. City managers on average last 3 to 4 years, believe it or not. I've lasted 15 years in Juno Beach. First contract was 10 years, and I didn't want the job. And I told them, if you're going to give me the, because I was the assistant, they couldn't give me enough money. It wasn't a money issue. So I said, if you give me these 2 things, I'll take the job. And it was a $250,000 severance pay and a 10-year contract. And I said, you'll never pay that severance pay. I promise you that. And they never did, obviously. And they gave me a 10-year contract. And then they gave me another 5-year contract. Both passed unanimously. So what experience do I have to this project? This job has, it's a hard job. And I love it, but it's a hard job because it takes 3 different disciplines. You have to make sure your vision and your goals are achieved, and also make the minority interests. Some of you are not going to get what you want because it's on consensus. It's on 3 to 2 votes or 4 to 1s. make those other council members happy. I've never had a bad relationship with a council member ever in my 40 years of my career. Can you believe that? Never had I've always had a talking conversation with all of my council members, had a respect and a professional relationship. But the job is hard because it's 3 different disciplines. You have to make sure you're happy, have to make sure the residents are happy, and you have to run a business. That running a government is running a business. You have to develop the staff. I don't even like to call them staff. They're my colleagues because it's a team, and I have to treat them fairly and enhance or continue the great culture that Dan put in here, and make sure that they know that we got their back, and their hard work is definitely commendable, and we're going to treat them fairly, and I'm going to make sure we treat them fairly. And so those are the 3 disciplines: is making sure you're happy, running a business, and the residents.
What particular experience do you have with respect to budget preparation and finance? I know it's a softball question, but I'm asking everybody the same
Well, I'm going to
question.
answer. Okay. Obviously, I used to do budgets. I don't do them as much as manage.
What's for the budget for Juneau?
It's 10 million currently.
Do you have your own police department?
Yes, I do.
What particular experience do you have with respect to personnel, labor relations, including collective bargaining?
Well, when I first took the manager job 15 years ago, they were in an impasse. That's when labor and the whoever's negotiating can't come to an agreement. It's called an impasse. So that was my first thing, and I didn't like the way we hired a consultant. It's usually a labor attorney, they call them, to facilitate that process. And I told the council, I don't like the way this is going. I'm going to do it. So I solved the impasse, right? I solved the impasse right from there. We got a contract, and ever since then, I've been fair with the town employees and the town police department. We only have 1 union, but I handle, or my team handles, all the negotiations. We have a labor attorney just in case we need some legal advice, but most of all, we handle the negotiations.
What will be your first steps upon becoming the town manager, assuming this position? What do you hope to accomplish in your first year?
That's a good question. Obviously, the textbook question is, you're supposed to do a hiring freeze and get to know everybody. But again, I'm getting to know you all. I wouldn't have applied if I didn't feel comfortable here. And I know Dan for 20 years, so it's going to be a little bit of a hybrid, because I'm going to get to know every department, I'm not a micromanager, but I need to know everything. So I need to understand everything, because I need to know all the pieces on how they work. So that is going to be my first job, and I'm going to seek out from all of you what your goals are, and I'm going to work on those goals.
From your vantage point, what do you believe to be the challenges and opportunity facing the town?
You have a very low taxable value and a higher millage rate. And those 2 things scare me, but I'm going to work on them.
Why do you, where do you want to be 5 years from now?
Right here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Any follow-up questions on this?
Just one.
Yep.
Yes.
SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and just wanted to build off of what Mr. Shalhoub was talking about. Have you had an opportunity to kind of think of Lake Clark Shores utilizing that SWOT analysis?
Expand on SWOT analysis.
So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and
Of
which
just part of it.
Of just our community in terms of what we do well, what we could use some improvement on.
Okay.
From
just my overall aspect.
just overall.
Overall, I think the town is well run. I wouldn't be here if I didn't think it was that way. I believe your council is very knowledgeable and fair. I don't see you having an agenda. Other communities have that. So you all seem to be really good people with good insight and want to do the right thing. I think that the community is beautiful. So all of those are the strengths. That's why I applied. Obviously, I'm worried about what I have to do on that corridor to see if you're palatable for me to do what I think needs to be done there. because, you know, I see an opportunity there right next to I-95. And that is not what, that area needs to be redeveloped, in my opinion. So
Okay.
that's going to be something I'm going to focus in on. And obviously, if that's the desire to go septic to sewer, I'm going to make it happen.
And do you see any, well, you touched on, you know, just kind of values and whatnot, but the threats to our community, I don't know.
No, threats is, you know, it's maintaining staff, you know, is retaining good staff is, I'm just as good as my team behind me. So I have to make sure to treat them fairly, to get the resources from you all to recruit, retain, and keep good people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lobello. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
You're free to go.
Okay. Wasn't too bad.
So,
Somehow
Mr.
we
Mayor,
managed to do this, I mean, almost to a T, about 30 minutes apiece.
so I'll bring in Mr. Davis again, Dr. Davis, and
Yes,
they can listen to the discussion.
Yes.
How are you, Mayor?
Good evening, Mayor Smith. How are you feeling today? Welcome. We have the mayor of Palm Springs in attendance today. What did you say? Yes.
Sister city, absolutely.
We're both 65 this year,
Really?
You're gonna be 65
since we are both on Springs.
Yeah,
Right, we're the same age.
on 1957?
I did not know that about Palm Springs.
We were May 31st.
December.
I was.
Was it December?
Research, I thought it was September.
I thought ours was July.
Do I hear
September,
June?
July,
I have the book.
December. Well, before we go and look that up, let's start with discussions on our decision that we have to make today between these two fine and exceptional gentlemen. So we'll start with Councilman Rodriguez.
I'm gonna have to go first.
If you want, I'll start with Mr. Gonzalez.
Start with Mr.
All right, Councilman Gonzalez.
See what happens when you're the newbie?
Oh, it's just fine. What is the question? What are,
Well,
council comments.
today we're deciding between these two fine gentlemen.
Yes,
If you
correct.
want to answer.
There's a 3-minute limit, Bobby.
So, thank you. So to be quite honest, I'd like to hear from some of the residents so we understand. So that would be my motion, would be to amend the agenda so that we could hear audience comments prior to our comments.
Okay, well, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Oh, I'll second.
It'll take a motion to reconsider because didn't you already have a motion to approve the agenda?
We did, and this is,
So you need to have a motion to reconsider and that has to pass before you can move forward.
so it would be a motion to reconsider the
And
agenda.
that has to be by a member of the prevailing side, and I believe the vote was unanimous.
So that would be
I'll second that motion.
everyone up here.
Okay.
All right, there's a second. All in favor?
All right.
No problem.
And so
Motion carries.
do I have to remake the motion?
Yes, you do.
Okay, so my motion now is so that we can have audience comments, which is agenda item number 6, to precede agenda item number 4, which is council comments.
Precede.
Precede,
Is there a second?
before.
So moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. All right. So we're going to move audience comments. Now, given where you've put it, this would be limited to the topic before the council of the selection of the town manager,
Correct.
which I appreciate this. You've now removed audience comments from the meeting afterwards, which is okay because this is a special meeting for this specific purpose. So any audience comments on the selection of the town manager? Yes, Mr. Kulkarni. Please introduce
Ashok
yourself.
Kulkarni, 8131 Westlake Drive. First, I must thank you because that is precisely what I suggested, that before you make a decision, please have a audience comments. So I really appreciate that, number one. I got a quick two questions because town is very much concerned about this septic to sewer. And Mr. Lovelo mentioned that on the junior town, the entire town was converted from sanitary sewer to sanitary. So I will appreciate if he can give us some more details. How many homes were there? How much they have to charge per home? And whether they get government grants, which is very critical. And I would like to know also size of Lake Shore with the Juneau town, number one. And secondly, we are also concerned with the excessive parking issue, recreational vehicles, boats on the single family homes, whether these both candidates have dealt with something like that on that issue. Those are the two things, if they can provide us the details, I will really appreciate. But the septic to sewer is major concern. So if they give more details, I think everybody will appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other audience comments? Yeah.
Timothy Daughtry, 1410 Keller Road. And this is addressed to both Joe and Jason. So this comment was made the night that Dan was first offered the job here. And you interacted with these gentlemen up here and town staff and everything else. But that is a small portion of what makes this town what it is. And the residents, the volunteer in this town, goes so much further about what this town is all about. And I want to reiterate that it's very, very important to those of us who are residents in this town. And I understand you're going to interact with these gentlemen quite a bit, but what really makes this a town is each and every one of these residents that is in this town. And if either one of you gets this job, I would love for you to understand that they are important parts of this community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tim. Any other audience comments? Yes?
My name is Louise Brandenburg, 1890 Carissa Road. My question, and it might be a disadvantage to Jason, being Joseph has managed a town, but I'd like to know how familiar you are with the Florida statute for the home-based business. It's Florida statute 559955, and what you did specifically in Juneau to enforce that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other audience comments? Okay. All right. Anything online written? Any hands raised?
No, sir.
All right, thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to council comments. Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Addressing Mr. Kilcarney's question about similar size, I believe Mr. Lobello said it was about similar in size in terms of the number of residents. So that's nice to know. I know that they're unable to respond to some of those questions, but I know that they've heard you. And when the appropriate time presents itself, I'm sure that both candidates would like to respond to that in whatever way they see fit or later on. I'm not sure, but the way that it's set up, these audience comments are just not set up for a back and forth. And my motion was solely to just, I wanted to hear from some of the residents in terms of what was important in terms of our selection process. Tim, thank you for your words and kind of focusing in on our community. and really making it about getting together and following along and making this community the best that it can be. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much to both of the candidates. I appreciate the time expended on this, the time that you have spent with each and every single one of us. Just for everyone's understanding, each candidate spent about an hour with each and every single one of us. So that's a significant portion of their day, their life. In addition, there's a pretty lengthy application process and submitting cover letters and resumes. So I appreciate all of the thought, the consideration, and time that you spent with our community. So Jason and Joe, thank you both very much. Those are my comments.
So what are your comments on what our decision should be today? Or do you have any comments for the council to consider between the applicants?
I think that looking both Joe and if you don't mind, I'm going to say Joe and Jason. It's just easier. It's a difficult decision that we have before us. Jason, you have a huge budget or just a huge undertaking in terms of operating the facilities of Palm Beach County. I heard that you have a good relationship with Palm Beach County, although our interaction as a town is limited in somewhat with our interaction in Palm Beach County as a whole. You bring a lot of experience, both from the private sector, from your security background to managing, almost 1,200 people. And then Joe, you are similarly situated to Lake Clark Shores. He has the CPA background, and I think the opportunity is not wasted on me to identify that Lake Clark Shores is either now or at the beginning stages of feeling a financial squeeze in the future. And I think that, Joe, you highlighted that in an important way. We have a high millage rate, and we have, although we've enjoyed a rise in values in homes, but in your financial eye and your perspective, there's an issue with that you'd like to remedy or fix. It's a difficult decision for me, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if we should.
We're going to be voting on these little pieces of paper.
Okay, right, yeah.
If there's anything in particular you wanted to discuss with the council?
This is really hard because, you both have pros and cons in very distinct ways.
Well,
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you. I won't be as diplomatic. No. The point is, you're both are great candidates. You really are. Sorry. You both are really great candidates. You really are. And everything Bobby said about you is great. This is the issue I see. I've been up here 16 years. We need a turnkey town manager. And Jason, that's no disrespect to you, but we need a turnkey town manager to help us get through some really difficult problems with a very small budget. Now, you've had the luxury of a $10 million budget in Juneau. I hope you can understand that's like 4 times our budget or 3 times our budget. I really feel like you're, Joe, you're the person that best would be for a turnkey. It's like, I need a house built quickly. I'm not saying, Jason, you can't build a house, because you probably will build that house amazingly. You have so many talents. When I talk about your water utility, it's just mind-boggling the things you're involved in and the employees you have. And yeah, Todd Bunlarin, everybody has some good things about you. But in my opinion, this town so desperately needs a turnkey town manager to come in and take over Dan. I remember I was running the meeting when we picked Dan 10, 12 years ago. It was so difficult then. And we weren't even sure with whether, you had so many candidates, we weren't sure. The thing about you, Joe, is I feel like you have the foundation now. I'm not saying, Jason, you don't, because you could. I just feel like you have it now so that we can get into these problems we have, which aren't simple. And I'm telling you, as town council members, we need It's like me trying to bring an associate into my office. I hate it because you have to train them. We don't have to train somebody. We need somebody to come in and learn and move right into what we're doing because time is of the essence. That's my opinion. That's all. Thank you.
President Pro Tem Freebold.
Okay, yes, the hiring process is a very difficult situation. I've done over 100 hires in my career, and it's the most important thing that happens, because almost like once you say I do, you do. And that's important for us as a council to see. I agree with Val. I want to know what your insight is on the property value to millage rate. Millage rate, Dan, as you know, has always been one of our big problems. If anything goes up within the fire department or anything of that nature, we have issues. We don't have a $10 million budget. So as a small town, we do a lot with a little. And I've been a small businessman my whole life by choice, because my family always came first, my wife and my children, and my home life. I'm not available 24/7. Just a little humor. So I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on that, because the property values are going through the roof, as you know, and so is the millage rate. Juno Beach is 2.722 square miles. You got 3770 residents. We're 1.5 square miles, and we've got 3550, and that's of 2021. And those are things that I looked at, when we think about this, because I have to agree with Councilman Rodriguez. We have a lot of iron in the fire here, and it's kind of got to hit the ground running, because some of these things are, in my opinion, mandatory, depending on your point of view. Everybody has different points of view, as you both know. And you've worked in the conversion, In my opinion, that's one of the biggest, most dividing things that we have in the community. When I'm not afraid to say that I feel like it's the most important thing, because the lake is what we have. Just look what those houses are going for. They just sold for $2.5 million in 1957 home that not a thing had been done to. I don't know how many of y'all been in Judge Burke's house, but it looked like 1957. And that's not a bad thing. It's just, that's what's going on in this community. And the demographics are changing. So everybody's very well qualified. That's why the hiring process is so difficult. You're both very nice men. And time will tell. I've got a little barometer here that I've been keeping on both of you, just to see my own personal thing that I look at when I interview and do hires in my own company. And you guys are, neck and neck. I agree, we need experience right now, and it's a major thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Mayor.
When Dan and I first started talking about his replacement, I told him the first thing that I wanted was a person that had relationships already established, because I want to be able to pick up the phone and call Virginia Baker. I want to pick up the phone and call David Silvers. I want to pick up the phone and talk to our new senator, should he get elected, Senator Bobby Powell. Everybody needs to know and appreciate the definition of a fund balance. I want those relationships established, because we can't afford not to have somebody. Interesting concept of a turnkey. But it's also interesting to appreciate the fact that Dan had no experience as being a town manager. You talk about somebody that drew lucky sevens. We're one of the luckiest council that there was. And if you all remember, I was the one that was most concerned about rushing to judgment on Mr. Clark. And I said, can we postpone it to the next meeting? And I got my head chewed off. I swear to God, and I said, I don't know who he is. And the interesting thing is, I've received a lot of phone calls on the candidates who have submitted their application. And I tell you what, I was the first person that interviewed Dr. Davis, and I was impressed with them immensely. And then we went to another candidate who is no longer in consideration. Then we went to Mr. Lobello. And the stepping stone for this opportunity in your career, Dr. Davis, I think is a great opportunity. I think the world of you. I love your experience and the fact that you've been able to achieve the accomplishments that you've had and the drive that you have. I like you a lot. Joe Lobello, I like him a lot too. But I need somebody to pick up the phone and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. So with that in mind, I just want both of you to exchange phone numbers.
2 for 1.
2 for 1. I tell you what, this is a rough decision, and I just look at you and just say,
Please don't go.
I can't say what I'm thinking. I want to be so respectful, but gosh almighty, I've said this to others, you have brought us to a position where I never thought we would be in as a town manager. When I first joined League of Cities, if the truth be known, they didn't spell our name correctly. Yep. And I started attending League of Cities when Mayor Smith was the president, and went up to Tallahassee with her. And so when I went to the first meeting, they gave us a little placard, and I looked at everybody and I said, our name is spelled wrong. And that's because of lack of involvement and lack of attention to detail. And what you don't know is that as I said, I never thought we would have accomplished so much. We can't fill your shoes, but we can certainly appreciate what you've done, and we can try and get in lockstep with your dream and your goals. And I thank you so very, very much. But you've left us with a very difficult decision. And I also want to thank you for the paring it down from the 16 to the 3 to the 4. There was another applicant that was in the top 4, and he bowed out also. And he bowed out because of family reasons, and I respect that. But I tell you what, this is a process that I've taken very seriously. I've done my research on both of them. I've tried to figure out who they are and made phone calls to find out to what extent their personalities are. And want you all to know that when we met here a couple weeks ago, we had all of the staff in a big circle, and we had lunch together. And I had the opportunity to introduce everybody. And then we left. I left. And I think you all had an opportunity to meet one-on-one with the staff. And it is a family. It really is a family. And I don't know whether that's great, good, bad, but it seems to be working under Mr. Clark's administration. So I tell you what, you've created a culture, and I think it's a good culture. And we have a big responsibility ahead of us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Gentlemen, truly, it's been a pleasure to go through this process with both of you. Mr. Davis, just to meet with you, and I think we spent an hour, and Dan's pulling me out of the room. I didn't even realize that much time had passed, given everything that we were covering. So I really enjoyed it, and really appreciate the fact that both of y'all saw this town to be the great place to live and work that it is. And so much so that you both chose to apply here to join the Lake Clark Shores family. So thank you all very much. I truly appreciate it. And I echo just about everything that was said up here. about y'all's qualifications, your work experience, your work ethic. I even told Dan after the interviews, I said, man, even though we only got 3 people, we got a heck of a group. This isn't a slam dunk for any of them. So I really appreciated all of y'all's time today and the preceding weeks. All right, gentlemen. I don't think we need to make a motion or anything. We just write it on this piece of paper.
Put your number 1 pick on that piece of paper and then sign the paper, please.
Do we have to sign these other ones too now? Like submit it
No.
all at one time?
Not right now, just the pink one right now, but before you leave tonight, all the others have to be signed.
Is Mr. Chick going to assume the position?
Well, he said he was. I will collect them.
Sign these 2. These 2.
No. He says collect those later.
Well, later?
It's okay.
You want to collect the stickers up?
No.
Later for this?
I don't
Oh,
know.
later for this. Got it. I'm on.
I hope this thing doesn't last
I'm still sleeping.
for too much longer. I'll be back to 2 arms.
Needless to say, you're not playing football.
He says
It's,
o'clock.
We're still holding the game.
You're announcing?
I'm just gonna be the referee.
Okay.
When my dog, I said, how about the Elf Bowl? He looked at me and said 2023. I said, fine.
So when's your no shave November?
November 30th.
Mr. Clark, where are we supposed to be November 30th?
We're supposed to be at the No Shave November meeting until 7 o'clock when the mayor says it's done, and then we fly like a bat out of hell to Orlando for a League of Cities meeting.
Now, with that in mind, Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes,
we're
sir.
Flying to Orlando.
I will not be flying you, and I hope everyone's following the speed limit.
As long as Dan's driving, we have no threat of
Oh,
that.
God.
That's gonna be at the Marriott in Palm Beach Gardens where it was last year. Yeah, the No Shave November. The League of Cities is at where we were, Lake Buena Vista.
Hyatt.
Yeah.
Embassy
Hilton.
Suites.
And how much
Lake
money,
Buena Vista South,
how much money did you raise last year?
25,000.
I thought it was over
For
80.
what?
No, it was over 75, just
Oh.
for Cancer Alliance of Help and Hope. It's probably wanting everybody to understand why my beard is so long at the moment. It's going to get longer over the course of the month. Yeah,
And regular
I'll
town
send you guys a
council
link.
meetings the 15th.
We have a workshop on trailers on the 10th, Thursday, the 10th.
I'm sorry, what was that?
We have a workshop on trailers Thursday, the 10th, and
November
then
Is that at 6:30?
November 10th at 6:30.
November 10th?
And then we have the regular town council meeting on Tuesday, the 15th at
Who's
6:30.
to work?
Okay. I just need to make sure because I got some notifications to do in there. I'll be in touch regarding that.
So for all those listening in attendance, November 10th, trailer workshop. There is no meeting on the 8th because it's election day. And then the regular town council meeting will be on the 15th. All right.
Everyone hitch a ride on the 10th.
So do we do anything now? Charlie has to read the results, yeah?
I have
I would imagine.
tallied the results. There are 5 votes for Joe LaBello.
She's been out for 2
Okay.
years. She loved it.
Do we need to do a motion now?
Yes.
All right, I'll take a motion.
So move.
All right, motion to appoint Joe LaBello as our new town manager is made. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Congratulations, Joe. Thank you again.
Dr. Davis, it was great.
It really was. All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Is
So moved.
there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
What about Juno, Dr. Davis?
You know what? You don't know, that thought came by,
That
crossed
thought
my
crossed
mind.
My mind too.
Yeah, that really cost me.
Sooner you start.
I'll tell you all about
I'll give you a letter of recommendation.
process.
I'm not available on the 10th, so I will have to send this.
Okay.
I
You
have a prior commitment.